Hey y'all, my name is Jasmine Jones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and you are now watching Black Girl, Therapists in the Wild. And this is a little show I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. Today we are reviewing Eve's Bayou, a little classic from 1997. We're sipping on the last bit of the Simply Lemonade Pina Colada and vodka, yo. So yes, 1997. I was 10 years old when I saw this movie. Didn't realize that basically it was a movie to show how insidious child molestation and grooming is. See, when I first saw this movie, I only saw it a few times as a kid, and then later on, since I saw it so much as a kid, I didn't really have the interest in seeing it again. So when I watched it again as an adult, I realized, wow, as a kid, I kind of wanted to believe, because I didn't know anything about grooming, so I thought that, Samuel Jackson is a good dad. He just cheats, and he just, he's just out here cheating, but he loves his daughters. But it still kind of gave me a ill feeling every time he was around his daughters, the way that he talked to them, the way that he would get it. He's a good actor, because going back and watching this, he is giving all the Predator vibes, and I was just like, why did this make me feel weird? And then at the end, I would just question, like, why would he say the child tried to molest him? I'm confused. Because as a 10-year-old, I was just confused. As an adult, I was just like, no, there's something wrong there. Somebody did something to her. But I didn't realize until I watched the movie that basically they've been showing throughout this whole movie how he's groomed her, how he probably had molested her earlier on in the movie, and how she deteriorated. So we're talking about Cicely. We're talking about Megan Good's character. Oh, such a classic. Every actor in this movie could act top tier. They just did it. This movie was directed by Cassie Lemons. She has directed various movies. I think she even directed Madam C.J. Walker's movie on Netflix, and she was the black woman in Candyman, the white girl's friend. And I didn't realize that she directed so much until I watched this movie, and then I researched a little bit, because I always like to look up stuff as I'm watching movies and IMDb things just to find things out. But yes, movie was written and directed by a black woman. She did that with the tone that she set in this movie. So we're starting off with this happy looking family on the surface. And isn't that how it always starts off in these type of situations? Everyone seems happy and wonderful on the outside. A Ted Bundy-esque charm. Like he's so nice and wonderful and great. And then he goes and murders 8 nurses in, nursing school. All the charm is laid on thick. And you're just like, this is nice. This little family in New Orleans is so, mystical and magical and wonderful. And then, as the party progresses, the undertones start to rise, and you start to see the, mainly when Eve's character, Journey Smollett, walks in the room, you can see the middle child angst there, because it seems like Mom's favorite is the youngest son. Dad's favorite is the oldest daughter. Dad asks the oldest daughter to dance, but doesn't ask Eve to dance. Eve feels the type of way. She goes out into the carriage house. I really was like, is this a shed barn? I didn't know what it was till she said what. I was like, oh, carriage house. Okay, we're back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't know. We got carriage houses and things in the South, and it's carriage house. Yeah, so the play of their facial expressions, that's where you got to look at the undertones of everything. Everything is in the face. These people are giving face. Every time a line is said that seems kind of, they're giving face. When brother ran up and mom hugged him immediately, Journey Smollett was just like, and you were just like, this bitch can act. Everything was face. So she has classic middle child syndrome, no one to really attach to, but her best friend, the one that she does attach to, is her Aunt Moselle. They both have the sight, basically. There's a mystical, magical element here, because black folks are tied with magic. We are a part of the earth. We are a part of, that's who we were before white supremacy, and that's what we brought over here and mixed in with the white supremacy rhetoric and religions and things like that. So yes, they both have the sight, and it's magical how they've mixed in this, middle class, upper middle class family, rich. I don't know what you would call it back then. He's a small town doctor. They live in a nice house. Um, mix in that with just magic and the sights and voodoo and all the things that are in the, side part of the black experience, So she runs off to the carriage house and she's just like so upset. No one's paying attention to her. So she just climbs in one of the carriages and falls asleep, wakes up to her daddy fucking some woman. And her daddy tries to play it off. The woman gets dressed and he just tries to act like nothing. He's so arrogant. I want to say he's a narcissist. This whole movie, I just feel like he's a narcissist. He has low self-esteem. He needs to get his attention from all of these women. He admits to needing to get his attention from all of these women. That makes him feel like a man. Very sad, low self-esteem, needs help, but takes it out on women type. Yes. And so she sees him, and then in a very just the way he picks her up. I was watching another YouTuber talk about it, and they were just saying just the way that he picks her up, the way that he takes her outside, the way that he just puts his hand on her face and gets into her face and just basically gaslights her and tells her nothing happened. Nothing happened. It's just very, very groomy and gaslighty and weird. And, Journey is going to believe it. Eve is going to believe it for the moment that she's in front of her dad because he's an adult. Why are we calling out adults? You know what I mean? To their faces. She's not there yet. So she goes in the house and she gets dressed, but she knows what happened. So she starts crying. Well, before she goes in the house, I think mom has an inkling because we women, we always have an inkling. It's just up to us to decide, are we going to be real about it and confront this inkling that you have? Or are we going to shove it under the rug and act like you don't feel a thing? She basically comes out there, sees that Eve looks a little distressed in the face. She's not crying anymore. And as Eve is walking into the house, she asks, "What's wrong with her?" Whatchamacallit, Luis. That's Samuel L. Jackson's name in this. I'm going to be switching back and forth between their character names and their actual names because yes. It's the only reason why, yes. And she looks at Louise and she goes, "Is everything okay?" And he's like, "No, she's fine." But you see the concern on her face of a mother who feels like there's something wrong, but she's not quite sure what it is. So she doesn't want to question further. She asks Louise to come into the house. Louise says, "No, I'm going to sit out here for a little bit and smoke and be a dick and whatever." And this is when you see wife's face crumbles a little bit. The mask, the veneer crumbles a little bit because she knows he's cheating. Everyone knows he's cheating. It's not a secret. He tells Eve while he's trying to console her that her mom is the most perfect, beautiful woman and he loves her beyond measure.
Is the most beautiful, perfect woman I ever met. Your mama's a lady, and I'll always love her.
He's placed her on this pedestal of perfection, and because she doesn't bow and cater to him because he's cheating on her, she basically, is not someone that he feels beholden to. Why would you bow and cater to someone that's cheating on you? Oh no, and take it from the biggest people pleaser over here. When I fall in love, I give it all and it just turns into this gullible mess. And that is why you have to be picky and choosy, because there's nothing wrong with being a gullible mess as long as the person you're being a gullible mess for appreciates it and cherishes it and, waters the plant so it can grow. Right. So, her face cracks a little bit and she goes back in the house because she's just this nigga. Anyways, Journey is upstairs with Megan and Journey just starts to cry and sob. Megan's like, "What's wrong, Journey?" I'm going to keep saying her name like Journey. What's wrong, Journey? And Journey's like, "Daddy was fucking some bitch in the barn shed horse carriage house."
Daddy. What? Daddy and Mrs. Moreau. That's a lie.
And, just as Daddy did, Cicely takes Journey to the side, puts her arm around, just like Daddy did. Whispers softly to her, "No, he didn't. this isn't what happened. Let me retell the story for you. And just gives her some made up ass story about how they were in the barn house, courthouse, carriage house. I'm sorry if I'm offending people. It's probably like a cultural thing. I don't fucking know. I've never been in a carriage house. I've never seen one. I don't fucking. And they were just laughing and they were falling all over each other. And obviously, it may have looked like he was rubbing his crotch up against her crotch, but no, they were just laughing. So obviously, this child is mimicking what their dad does when he grooms her. She didn't make that shit up by herself. She didn't make up gently putting her arm around this child and being like, oh no, just like daddy did downstairs. Child, please stop it. Stop it. So we see this is the deterioration of this child. Of course, we're surrounded by side stories. We got Auntie Moselle, whose husband Harry dies the night of the party, and apparently she's cursed. And I'm not going to deny the mysticalities of what's going on with Moselle, but she also gaslights. And anytime that, they're walking along the river, her and Roz, Lynn Whitfield, beautiful, gracious woman that, just looks straight out of the 1950s, walking along the river, the swamps, the bayou, and Lynn is just like, he's shitting on me. Fuck this nigga. He ain't shit. And then, Moselle's just like, no, honey. One day he's going to look at you like it was the first time. And he is going to fall madly in love with you and just forget about all the other bitches. And I'm just, girl. So she doesn't really confront her brother's bullshit to anybody else's face, but apparently she did towards the end. She confronted him, and that's why he wrote her the letters in denial, trying to cover his ass. Oh no, this 14-year-old child came on to me. That's basically what in very flowery, pretty New Orleansians words and Shakespearean. The language in this movie is beautiful. They up here, the children reading Shakespeare and shit, bored in the house after Moselle has some vision about this is not in order. So it's gonna be what it is, and it is. So children up in the house, bored and shit, because Moselle had some vision about some child getting hit by a train or whatever the fuck.
What did you do to your brother?
I'm going to push him out of a window if I don't get out of this house.
And so Lynn got scared and said all the children have to stay in the house. And they in the house reenacting Shakespeare plays and shit. I'm just like, I know it's the 60s, 70s, whatever, 40s, 50s. There has to be a television. It's a time for a television. There had to be a television in this space. Maybe not. Maybe it's the early 1900s. Because I kept trying to place the outfits and shit because they in the South. So a lot of times when you in the South, like it could be a 90s movie and they still ain't got updated shit. And you just looking like, what time period is this? I don't fucking know. So, anyways, throughout this movie, you can just slowly see the deterioration of this child. And then you see, Miss Eve over here, she acting out because mama made her stay in the house. And then, and daddy is just out here fucking bitches, staying out all night. The children know, at least Eve and, Cicely know that this man is out here fucking these hoes.
You better hush.
And where's Daddy? He's never home. He's supposed to be home sometimes.
Listen, you little ingrate. Your father works hard so we can have a house with 4 bathrooms.
Not every night he's not working. I know he's not.
And, it's just sickening. I don't know if he has a sex addiction or whatever. That's why I say, he could be a whole narcissist, because it doesn't seem like he cares about these people's feelings. Like, he's grooming one child he loves, but he kind of stays away from her because it feels like she has a similarity to the auntie with the sight. And basically, he doesn't believe the auntie has a sight. It sounds more like he's scared. And a lot of times when it comes to witchcraft and shit that are mostly feminine, powerful things, men get afraid of that because that's something that's not controllable by men. And that's why we have like the witch burnings and shit like that. I read an article about that shit, and it was just talking about that's why we have because men are afraid of women with power, any kind of power they can't control. So I think it's more fear than anything that makes him deny Mozelle's power, even though even the mama said that she may be crazy, but every vision she has come true.
She may be crazy, but them visions always come true.
So I would listen to her. That's why all the women in the house are listening to her while he's sitting there looking stupid. He's sitting around undermining his wife. She's trying to say all the kids need to stay in the house. Yes, she may have went a little bit overboard, but at the same time, every vision this bitch has comes true. So I can't really even say that, oh, she's just abusive. Like, no, the bitch had a vision that one of her children was going to get hit by something. Every other vision she has comes true. So why not? Why not just keep him in the house for a few weeks? It's a big house. You know, they can do things. And I can see where she's coming from. Okay. You know, we're in a land where, you know, all of this shit is real. So we're going to go with it. We're going to go with this dimension of shit. Okay. He's telling her that, no, don't listen to your mama. And making the kids, you know, the kids kind of go from admiring him. You know, at the party, everyone's admiring him. He's put on this pedestal as this town doctor, and the kids admire him, and the kids all want his attention and things like that. So that hurts Journey even more when she doesn't get daddy's attention and all these things. So, you know, and then we see the deterioration of Cicely as going from this, you know, daddy's girl. She was a daddy's girl all up in his face to this, like, night of the party. He's having a fight with Harry, Mozelle's husband. And, you know, they're arguing because Harry wants to drive and he's telling him not to drive. And so Mozelle drives. And this little girl, I'm just looking at this little girl. She comes out on the porch and she goes, "Daddy, get in the house. This is unacceptable." And I was, why is she acting like she's his wife? That was the first hint. The first hint was when he danced with her. I mean, it was innocent. She was standing hella far away, but. And then when she came out that house with her, "Daddy, you get in this house. This is unacceptable." I'm just, how old are you? If I was 14, we had parties at my house. The Latin folks had parties next door every night. I would sleep through most of it. None of my business who was fighting. I'm a child. She comes out, and so she's already putting on these wifely airs and shit. So it seems like in the beginning he was just grooming her, but at some point he did something. He did something to her. So over the course of the movie, she just slowly starts to pull away from her mom. And she's treating her mom like she's the other woman. When her mom says they all have to stay in the house, she's just like, "Why do we have to stay in the house? I think you're being immature." And excuse you? She's staying up waiting for her dad to come home every night after he's been fucking hoes and shit. Got his scotch ready to give him a massage. So basically, she's giving him the wifely attention at home while he goes and gets the fuckings from the women outside the home, and his real wife is over here deteriorating into mental health issues because he's out here cheating on her.
What is it now?
And maybe she has an inkling that he's molesting her child. Yes, it's so many things going on. It's like having one of them households where the children get molested in secrets. I have so many clients. There's so many clients. That's why I'm bringing it up. They ain't even pointing to one specific client. It's so many clients that I see that be telling me about the house of molestations they be coming from. You know, be a house where they just hanging out and the cousins all staying in one house because the parents got to work and shit. Multiple stories of this shit. And they be getting molested in the house by the adults and by the children in secret, and it's just some shit that just be happening and nobody does nothing. And I'm just like, this one of them houses. This one of them molestation houses and shit. This probably been passed down for generations in the family. That's probably why Mozelle gaslighting everybody, because she don't want to acknowledge it, because he probably did it to her. They daddy probably did it to them. Somebody in their lineage, just because trauma, family cycles of trauma is passed down in families. It's genetically and it's also from nurturing, from watching shit. So genetically is epigenetics. Now I always talk about this. Joy DeGruy, post-traumatic slave disorder, things like that, or syndrome. Disorder is one of them. Um, and epigenetics, and how children in the womb of mothers who have some kind of trauma or are going through some kind of stress, the children can be born with higher levels of cortisol. That is high levels of stress hormone.
And what I did was I started to look at the African American experience, starting with slavery, as a real clear, long enduring trauma. I started to see that there were clear connections between that survival behavior and contemporary living in African American experience,
making them more susceptible to environments of stress. So if they're born into an abusive environment, born into an environment where they aren't taught how to cope and communicate and listen, they're more susceptible to developing depression, anxiety, abusive behaviors, and shit like that. Also, you're watching these people be abusive to each other to handle their conflicts and stuff. So either you're going to take that on and become that, or you're going to be very passive and, just be very passive and anxious and antsy and walking on eggshells all the time, or some mixture of both. You may be passive and anxious and antsy around your abuser, then you go to school and you abuse somebody to get your frustrations out. Shit like that. So it sounds like one of them families. It sounds like there's a trauma cycle of some kind of abuse in this family, and it's been normalized and secreted away. This child is showing all the signs of being molested, groomed, everything. Finally, we get to the breaking point where this child, Cicely, goes out in the rain, walks to her dad's job. She's not allowed to leave the house because mama still got them on lockdown, worried about Mozelle's, premonition and shit. She goes out and she goes and visits her dad and gets her little haircut. Comes back and mom's like, where the fuck you been? I called the police. I was scared. And she was just like, I went to go visit daddy and I got my hair cut and I didn't get hit by nothing. And mom just goes off on her, slaps her in the face and all this other shit. She runs off and starts crying. And I think that's when the molestation happened. I think it happened when she went and visited daddy. She slaps her. She runs upstairs. And I think some shit happened when she visited her dad. Later on that evening, mom calls her downstairs and is like, I don't want you sitting up waiting for your dad no more. I don't want you visiting your dad no more. Mom can sense something. We have a sixth sense when it comes to men and when it comes to our children especially. She knows something's going on. She don't want her running around these streets with her daddy because something wrong with him. She ain't ready to confront this nigga like she should, but apparently she did. I think she did. They had an argument that night, and that's the night that she came downstairs and she was like trying to comfort her dad, and I think he like raped her, molested her, did something to her. And after that, she just deteriorated. Her mental health went south. And, one day Eve goes upstairs during the summertime to like check on her because she'd been in the bathroom, going in the bathroom for 3 hours at a time.
Eve, Cicely's been in the goddamn bathtub for an hour. You know that? She stayed in there 3 hours yesterday.
Fortunately, there's more than one bathroom in this house.
Ain't that much dirt in all Louisiana. Get out of the damn tub!
That shit people do when they've been, abused, raped, something like that, where they be taking them hours long showers and shit. Well, they didn't have showered back then. So she's soaking in the bathtub, trying to cleanse herself of the disgusting. She's trying to cleanse her. That's what people do when they've been abused sometimes. They'll take these long ass showers and baths to cleanse themselves of the disgusting that was left on their body. And so she's cleansing herself of the disgusting for 3 hours, taking multiple baths during the day. And, Eve's trying to figure out what's going on with her because now they can go outside because somebody else's child got hit by a bus. Sad. And so her mom feels more calm about sending her children outside because they're thinking Mozelle's, premonition was about the bus and not about, their children, or it was about that other child, not about their children. So she goes upstairs to, tell her that they can leave. So, and leave the house. And so when she does, whatchamacallit, Cicely is under the blankets. She's trying to figure out why Cicely ain't saying shit, talking to nobody. So she's jumping on top of Cicely and then pulls the cover back and sees blood on Cicely.
Oh, so that's what's wrong with you. Look, you think just because you got blood in your pants, you don't have to act civilized no more? Shut up!
I don't know if the night of the storm was the night before that happened, or if it was like a few weeks before. Because if it was the night before, I think the blood was her virginal blood. But if it was a few weeks before, she may have had a miscarriage, and that's why she was in the bathroom for 3 hours at a time. Yep. I feel it. I think it was, because after that happened, that's when she had spent a few days in the bathroom for 3 hours at a time. And then after that was when the little boy got hit by the bus, and she went up there to get her sister, and she was laying in the bed with blood on her crotch and shit. I think she had a miscarriage. Or, she could have still been bleeding. She could have still been bleeding, though, from the being molested. She could have. It could happen. But that shit is gross. And now as I watch this movie, I'm just like, this man is gross. He's giving gross vibes throughout the whole movie. And I'm just like, Samuel L. Jackson is a good actor. But you know what? Him as an actor, I am slightly upset at, because the scene where he kissed that child on the mouth, because they have to reenact the scenes a few times to get it right. He kissed Megan Good as a child on the mouth. There was no double. That was her in his lap. He put his mouth on her for a whole few seconds. I mean, the 90s were ratchet, y'all. They just letting the children be out here kissing grown people in real life. I have to side eye the whole production of this. When I saw that scene, I was like, that's not a body double. I mean, I could be wrong, but it didn't look like no fucking body double. I'm upset. See, even the real people, you got to kind of side. I hope she got a little therapy off of that. Some, like, at least some sit to the side, ask her how she felt about it. Is she okay? And all this other stuff, because that was nasty. Because he did kiss her on her whole mouth as a child. That wasn't acting. They kept replaying that shit when they would have the flashbacks, and I'd just be like, why are they replaying this? Why do they keep going over this scene like this? Like, but no, this movie just shows you the whole insidiousness of child molestation and grooming. Like, nobody would have guessed that she wasn't just a daddy's girl that was just being extra. Yeah, she was acting like she was his wife, but so what, But daddy's girls, they be daddy's girls, so I don't know, but it just seems, who knows how long this was going on? Who knows? I don't think he was molesting her in the beginning, because her whole demeanor didn't change until after that storm, and she got depressed and was laying up in bed and doing all this extra stuff. And we got Moselle over here with her little side story. So I'm like, he looked like some black Native American dude with his lace front on. Came in the story, some Julian, and she's just so focused on these niggas, and she ain't even paying attention to her brother and what he's doing to these children. Like, girl, I'm sorry you're barren. I'm sorry your husbands keep dying, but you got like nieces and nephews right now that may be being hurt by your brother. Like, when you got a family cycle of trauma, though, like, that shit is normalized to the point where you'll be fine. You'll be okay. Like, no, what are you talking about? You just be having these houses of molestation and shit be happening, and nobody's here to help the children. Who is helping the children? I was upset watching this shit. I was just like, this little girl is being molested. Like, you could tell just the way she would act around her dad, acting like the other woman, like she grown and shit like that. Like, and I just kept, why is she talking to her mom? Why is she acting like, why is her hand on her hip like that? Like, that's why you gotta notice the signs of abuse. Children will show you signs. If they're like overly promiscuous. Like younger children will masturbate a lot, and they'll masturbate in front of people and shit like that, like it's normal or some shit. Older children will be more promiscuous, so try to touch each other, or they'll try to touch adults. That's kind of obvious though, but like acting grown, acting like you're in a relationship with your parent, like you're the other woman. That's an obvious sign that something's wrong here, whether it's grooming or molestation or both. Taking long baths and showers and shit for hours at a time, that's a good sign, because that's what people do when they've been abused. They just want to be clean. Irritability randomly out of depression. She went mute. She wasn't, that's how shocking what happened to her was. She went mute, bitch.
If you leave me alone with them, I'll die. I'll die, Cicely. What's wrong with you? Why won't you tell me? Is it me? Is it something I did? Why won't you talk to me?
And I was just like, honey, y'all not seeing? I mean, I know it's before therapy became a thing and mental health became a thing, but like, y'all not seeing it? Let it be me. Like, you just gotta know in your spirit that something's wrong. You got all these people with the sight and all this shit, and nobody's clocking this shit. They're just like, oh, well, she just has an attitude. Cicely just has an attitude. That's all it is. She just need a good smack. See, this is why people are against spanking, because some shit could really be going on with your kids, but because they acting out and got an attitude and some shit, that's all you see. Motherfucker. Kids don't, especially if they haven't had attitudes like that before, or you're not used to it, or it's like it looks like they're fucking destroying their lives with their attitudes. Failing in school, failing at friendships, failing in everything else, in family relationships. That's a good sign that something is going on with this child, and you need to get them into therapy, because kids will fuck up and make mistakes and do ratchet shit here and there. But if you just see a whole deterioration of their ability to function and in multiple areas of their lives, even if it's in one area, they at home and they don't talk to nobody ever. Like, teenagers will do some shit like that, but teenagers will still come out the room and have a conversation with you. They may balk and complain a little bit, but they still gonna do, like, not at all, just a not at all. Like they ain't bathing. Not bathing is a sign of abuse, because people don't want to be touched by the abuser, so they feel like if they can be as dirty as possible, then their abuser won't touch them. Rapid weight gain. Sometimes weight gain can be a sign of abuse, because if I'm fat, they won't touch me. Shit like that. And I don't mean like it's kind of if you see all this shit together, but even if you see just signs of some of it, you want to sit down and have conversations with your kids, is what I'm saying. This movie, they ain't having conversations with this child. They're not doing nothing for this child. They just think she got an attitude. I'm upset. And then, she finally tells Eve, like, Daddy touched me, he's trash. And Eve just goes off the rock, because she already pulled herself away from this nigga after he cheated so many times. I think the carriage house was the first time she realized he was cheating. And then her relationship with him deteriorated from there. She was like, this nigga, he took her on his little rounds as a doctor, and then fuck some bitch while she was on rounds with him.
Could you give me something for the pain?
Eve, go on outside and play. What pain is that, Stevie?
Talking about go outside and play. Like, he ain't even hiding. He don't even care. He is an arrogant asshole. He does not care how he impacts his children. You would think in the beginning, like, if he was just a cheater and that was it throughout the whole movie, you would think like, oh, in the beginning he told her that he loved her mom. He tried to comfort her. That means something. No, bitch. No, bitch. No, bitch. Like Poof said, no. Oh, sorry, Poofs. She said, no, bitch. She be hating me. I be fucking with her. She be like, one time she got so mad because I kept poking her. Shit, like, She tried to fight me. I was like, I'm sorry. We be having fun, huh? Ooh. But no, he out here like fucking his bitches. It was the stories that I used to watch. What is it? I didn't used to watch, my grandma used to watch these stories, and it was the woman from the stories. Whatever the stories was, I forgot the name of it, but it was her, and he fucked that bitch, and his daughter was there on him, and she knew what was happening. She's not dumb. She's not a dumb child. And then she's questioning him when he goes outside with her. She's like, so like,
No, I mean other kids besides us.
Open your mouth. Say, ah.
Ah.
No, I don't see anything in there would make you say something so stupid.
would you have other children? And she's like, would you love other children? And he's like, no, I would never. I'm fine with just you three. And she's like, no, I mean other children. She know he got other children. And he like, what are you talking about? And he tried to redirect her with some weird ass doctor shit, and it sends her on her way. She's all like, will you come home with me, daddy? And he was all like, I'll race you there. And of course he didn't race her there. He let her run off. And then his whole face just drops and he just looks evil, giving face. These actors are giving everything in their face. It's just amazing. Face just drops and he's just like, evil face. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this man is diabolical. He's diabolical. When he did that face, that was the face of like a narcissist and bullshit. He did that face. I was just like, oh, something's wrong with him. Oh, he's diabolically evil. Something is wrong with him. And so, yeah, she runs off and goes home. And, we get to the part of the movie, like I said, where he was like molested her, and then she told Eve, and they decided to send her away. She wanted to go away because he was molesting her. He came and tried to give her an exam, and she was like, no, I don't want you to look at me. Ew. What the fuck? Why would you? So he's like, okay, I know a nice lady doctor that will do it for you. And she was just like, And so they asked her if she wants to leave. She said, yeah, I want to leave. He's crazy. I want to leave. And so she leaves and goes to her grandma's house, her mother's mom. And then, she basically told Eve before she left. And then Eve goes and asks Auntie Moselle if she knows how to kill people with voodoo.
I almost forgot you was there.
I mean, do you just wish real hard that they were dead? Or do you have to do something special?
And then Moselle is over here going on some tangent about life and death and how life and death are intertwined, and she's seeing her dead husbands and shit. I think she's disassociating. I think that it was too much. The question was too much for her, and she disassociated into her dead husband story. That's why when she looked back at her, she was like, what you say, honey? Because she disassociated into her dead husband story just to get away for a minute. I think she does that a lot. And so she's like, how do you kill people with voodoo? And she's like, who do you want to kill? You tell me, what's going on? And she's just like, I don't want to know. And then so she makes her give her hands. That's how she reads people, like psychically and whatever. And I think she saw what happened. She just didn't want to acknowledge it. So what she does is she just says like, well, if you don't want to tell me, and then she lets her run off. And then she goes to the voodoo lady from the market to, get the voodoo. She thinks she's going to get a voodoo doll because she's a child and she wants to be in control of how her dad's pain is. But she didn't specifically ask for a voodoo doll. She just told this lady that she wanted him to die.
I want him dead. More little.
For certain.
She wouldn't tell her who. She wouldn't tell her why. The lady even offered her a protection spell. She just said, no, I want him to die. And you know what? If you touch children, I don't. He touched children. Do you want me to say it out loud? So how he ends up dead is that he was messing with Maddie. Maddie is one of the women in town that's married to Mr. Maddie. I don't know the last name, I forgot. But he was messing with her. Everybody knew he was messing with her, but the husband didn't know because he teaches at Xavier, and that's like 3 or 4 hours away. So either he will sleep there overnight sometimes, or it takes him forever to get back home. So he didn't know, and he trusted this nigga. Like my thing is, like, you've known this nigga enough to say that you love him and that you trust him. Because when he rode up on this nigga, he was like, I loved you, Luis. I trusted you, Luis.
I trusted you, Louis. And you've been fucking Maddie. I love you, Louis. I love you, Lenny.
And I'm just like, if you know this nigga enough to know that you can love him and trust him, did you know that this nigga was a cheater? Did you know this nigga was fucking bitches? Why you had this nigga around you? I mean, but the thing is, his wife made a choice too. So, you know what? I ain't even going, because if it was reversed, I would have been like, he made a choice. So, his wife made a choice too. So, and so he rolls up on this nigga at the bar with his wife, and whatchamacallit had already ran up to find him, because she found out the voodoo lady had already buried the coffin in a snake's mouth and shit like that with his hair, and so he was already dead. But my thing is, I can see how she blames herself. If you take away the voodoo piece. Before she ran into the voodoo lady at the market, she ran into Mr. Maddie's husband, and he was just like trying to talk to her, and he seemed kind of creepy too. Like, he was just looking her up and down, and hey, what's her name? Hey, Eve, and getting all up in her face and sounding predatory. All these niggas is predators. What's wrong with y'all? And then when she was all like, oh, I'm just going to buy apples, and he was like, oh, the apple cart is over there, you passed it. So she was going to buy the apples, and he just standing there behind her, staring at her while she buying apples. And I'm just like, why are you staring at this child? Like, why don't you walk on? Like, she's just buying apples. I'm never that interested in children. Like, if I see a child that is a friend's child, I would say, hi, how you doing? Great, and move the fuck. I'm not gonna stand there and watch them do things. So he was giving predatory vibes too, but whatever. So she goes up to him and she starts giving these like hints that, her daddy and Maddie are fucking. She's like, you must work long hours at that school. He was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, sometimes I spend the night because it's so far. She was like, oh, well, Maddie must get lonely. And he was like, nah, yeah, or no, he was like, yeah, I try to come back so Maddie doesn't get lonely. And she was like, I don't think Maddie's the lonely type. And I don't think my daddy's the lonely type. My mama's the lonely type, Phil, because my daddy's always gone at night. And basically, she kind of put the bug in his head, because it seemed like he wasn't even thinking that this nigga, because the way he shot and killed this nigga at the end, if he had found out earlier, if he had even an inkling of it, it seems like we would have already known about it. So it didn't seem like he had so I can see where she would blame her. So she's a child. Like, the way this nigga was living his life, somebody would have shot him eventually. But you know what? It is what it is. Whether she did voodoo or not, whether she told the nigga or not, whatever, he would have got shot eventually doing the shit that he doing, fucking around with other people's wives and shit like that. It would have happened. That nigga probably would have came home early one day to surprise her, and I lit in my mouth, and to surprise her and seen that nigga fucking with her, and shot them dead in the bed, both of them. Probably it would have happened. So you know what I mean? She's a child. She's 10 years old. I am not gonna blame this child for things that grown-ups do. So she at this bar, and dude shows up, gets his wife, says, don't say shit to my wife ever again. Luis follows them out, about to get in his car. They walking down, and then he gonna say goodnight to this bitch. Nigga told you never say shit to his wife ever. Arrogant asshole. Don't like himself. Doesn't care. wants the bitch's attention, thinks that nobody else is gonna ever step to him, whatever it is. You know, maybe subconsciously he had a death wish. Who knows? People like that, subconscious, they don't like themselves really. That's why they need all that attention, because they can't get it from within. And so, you know, if they're not getting that attention like that, they go into like deep depression. It's horrible. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this nigga is depressed over not getting bitches to like him, or not having everybody in his vicinity notice him and shit. So, you know, it could have been that. But anyways, he said goodnight to this bitch, and this nigga turned around and shoot him like twice, 3 times, some shit in the chest, and he's dead. Next thing you know, it's the funeral. Next thing you know, she's sitting at a tree, and Eve's sitting at a tree crying and shit. And, you know, Moselle come over. She's not crying. She's like, you know, just dazed because her dad just died. Moselle comes over talking about how she saw her dad in a dream, and he told her to fly away, and that she should marry that nigga that she with that looked like a black Indian, and da 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 da. And he told me to tell you that I'm still saving that dance. You know, girl, fuck that nigga and his molesting ass ways. Fuck his dance, you know. And hopefully Eve healed, and hopefully specifically Cicely healed off of that nigga trash. Trash. I mean, you can love people but still see them as trash because they're trash individuals. I've seen people do it. I don't know how they do it, how they love people that are abusive and trash to people, whether it's them or other people that they love, but they do it. And however that works, that's great. But for me and mine, nope. You heard me, you heard mine, you are trash now. I don't care. I don't care what good times we had. I don't care what nice things you did for me. Nigga, you're trash. No. Anyways, I had a friend that did that. Some shit happened with her and her shit, and I was just like, how you can forgive that nigga and be around that nigga like that? And I was just like, the level of forgiveness that I think that's where God wants us to reach. I can never. Because people, you can forgive people, but you don't forget, and you don't necessarily have to be around them. That's my level of forgiveness. I can let you go completely and let go of what you've done to me, but I'm never talking to you. I'm never going to be around you. I don't acknowledge you as a person. You know, I wish you well. I don't wish you death. You know, I wish you peace, and I don't wish you nothing really. I just want you just get out of my life. Like, get the fuck. So I'm just like, okay, but they still love their father, you know, in some way or another, and whatever. So they're grieving and whatever. And this bitch gonna tell her that her daddy's saving a dance for her, and she's just crying. And that's when she goes into the office and she finds the letter that he left Moselle. He left this letter to his sister. So his sister confronted him at some point. So she didn't confront him in front of the children. She didn't talk about him in front of his wife. She confronted him in private. And basically, that's where he decided to write this letter to cover his ass. Like, no, what happened was, you know, he said it eloquently and New Orleans-y. Now I want to go back. I don't know. He said it eloquently and New Orleans-y and all beautifully and shit in an evil way. And he's just like, I was sitting there in the chair. You know, I'm a horrible man. I have vices and I have low self-esteem. You know, I'm just a small town doctor that gives Advil to women. You know, so how many of these people are dying because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing? Anyways, small town doctor that just gives Advil to women and things and fucks them. But I love that they look up to me like I'm a hero. The admiration, because, you know, his wife doesn't, because he's cheating on her. And so any little, you know, questioning, he can't handle it. He can't handle any little conflicts, nothing. So he goes and he fucks bitches to fuck the conflicts away. Yes. You know, so he's like, I can't handle anything and I just need them to love me. And so, yes, I have my vices, but I would never, ever do such a vile, disgusting thing. You know, she came into the living room. It's like, what? And she gently put her hands on my shoulders and, you know, gave me a massage as sweet as a daughter can, and gave me my scotch sweetly as a daughter should, sat on my lap gently as a daughter, and gave me the sweetest, most sweet, This nasty, sweetest, most sweetest, gentlest kiss. That first kiss is the sweetest kiss that a daughter could give a father. And then all of a sudden, she just jumped into my face and just molested me. And I just, in my shock and appalledness, I threw her off of me and slapped her to the ground. And she was so hurt that I slapped her, she ran away. That's how we're gonna. It was thick. It was laid on so thick. Just the sweetness of the kiss. I was like, you are a child molester. How he worded it, it was gross. He just admitted to being a child molester in his letter. And you know, Jernay is 10. She's reading this letter and believing her daddy because she's 10. So she runs to her sister and she goes, you lied on daddy, you lied. And Cicely's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. And Jernay's like, tell me what happened. And she's like, I can't, because, you know, she's like in shock. She's been molested, no one to talk to, and all this other shit. So Jernay has the sight too. So she's like, give me your hands. And she gives her hands. And she just like goes through this vision, this chopped up vision of what happened, but we don't see everything. And then she lets go and she's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know. So she doesn't remember what happened all the way. It sounds like she repressed something. She disassociated. And you know, God help the children. God save the children. Okay, that's all I have to say. It's fucking nasty. And so, you know, they hold hands and stare off into the bayou, bonded together forever as sisters. And the thing is, they started off this movie talking about memories and how memories can stick with you and they can be, you know, and then they ended with how memories are like a tapestry that tell a story and all the stories make up your history. And I'm just like, yes, all of these memories are a part of your history. Everything that your ancestors did trickled down to you. You gotta work on your shit, man. You gotta work on your shit. All that shit trickles down. Like all that shit, epigenetic, all that shit trickles down to everybody in the family. And if you don't be the person to break that cycle, that shit's going to continue into the rest of the people in the family in one way or another. So go to therapy, get help, because it can be as insidious as Eve's Bayou abuse, just going on right under your nose, and either you don't know or you're in denial. If it's your child, I say you're in denial. Moms know. Parents be knowing. Parents that are not abusing their children be knowing something's wrong with their child. You just know by body language, tone of voice, behavior, things like that. It ain't even got to be spiritual and mystical. I felt her energy. It could just be simply that she has an attitude now more often, and I didn't know she didn't have that attitude before. This shit fucked me up. Because I always felt a weird energy around this movie, but it was more so like, and then I always questioned the end, like, the child didn't molest this grown-ass man. Even when I was a kid, I thought that was weird. I was like, what? He's a grown-up. What is he talking about? So now I'm watching the whole thing together, and she was just being tortured by this grown-ass man in her house, the devil in her house, this whole movie, and then realized it just wanted love, as children do, as human beings do. That's why we're so easily manipulated, because we just want to be loved, and someone come along and show us a little attention. Children are the most vulnerable because they don't know life. They don't know how people can hurt you. They be putting grown-ups, especially their parents, on pedestals and shit, and being like, that's why I always say, you got to take your parents off the parent pedestal and see them as a human being. Imagine you having a child right now, and that child is looking up to you like you're fucking God, and you know the truth. You know that you ain't shit. That you're just a regular human being that makes mistakes and things like that. Now, there's nothing wrong with your children occasionally looking up to you. You want them to have some sense of respect for you as an adult and as their parent, but you know, they still need to understand that you're a person. You make mistakes, you mess up, and having that conversation about making mistakes and seeing how you deal with making mistakes and seeing how you work through making mistakes, doing positive things like communicating and taking deep breaths and even crying. Like, you know how many adults I see now that can't cry because they never saw their parents cry, or their parents put them down for crying. But cry in front of your children doesn't mean that you have to lean completely on them with all your emotional issues and things like that. But if their kids see a few tears drop, you can say, mommy's just had a hard day. And sometimes, adults have hard days too. You ever have hard days? Put it back on them, because you don't need to be telling them about how your boss cussed you out or did some stupid shit at work. Put it back on the child and ask them if they ever had a hard day. Talk about it for a little bit and then be like, well, didn't you see, this is why mommy needs some space right now, just to take some time to myself and, feel a little bit better. Can you give me like a little bit of space so that I can feel a little bit better? Then I can come back out and we can play a board game or something quiet, or watch the television show or some shit like that. And then the kid, you can be like, have you ever needed space when you felt down? And the kid will be like, yes, sometimes I just want to go in my room and play with my toys and be unbothered. And then you can be like, so see, that's why you can understand that mommy would need space as well, and just take a moment. And if you make a pattern of doing that every time you get overwhelmed or upset, that you just need like 15, 20, 30, an hour, eventually the kid will get used to the rhythm and catch on. Be very structured with it, but open and communicative. And it's okay to make mistakes, and kids need to know that shit, or they grow up with these weird ass complexes about making mistakes. I have to be perfect, and if I'm not perfect, I'm a horrible ass person. I live my life like that. I'm a clumsy hoe, I'm a messy hoe, I'm a depressed hoe, I'm an anxious hoe, I'm all the things. But I'm also an amazing ass bitch, so don't come for me. I can say that shit about myself, but nobody else can, bitch. I don't care. See, that's where I draw the line. That's my boundary. I can say all the fucked up shit I want about myself. You ain't gonna be out here externally validating nothing, my nigga. Like, the fuck? I don't need to hear none of that. I know what I am. But that doesn't mean I'm not open to, constructive criticism when it's done respectively, it's logical, it makes sense, and you're telling me about something that I may not be noticing that I actually care about. Like, if I have a string hanging on, I don't care about that. This shit in my hair, like, it was supposed to be the pink wax that makes your hair pink without bleaching it. I just don't say shit about it. I know what it looks like. And some people may think it's cute. I mean, in some angles it kind of looks, but I just, don't talk to me about none of that. I don't care. I'm going to leave it on my hair for a few days, and I'm going to go to the Korean bathhouse and do my whole beauty routine. I'm just going to wash it out. And maybe it's a different color. See, it's like Andrew Zimmern on that weird eat show on the Travel Channel, where he always says he tries something at least twice before saying that he will never try it again. And I feel like it's a good motto, unless it's some really gross shit. Like, there's some shit that he eat on that show that I'm not eating. I'm not putting that shit in my mouth. Maybe, like, when you go to these countries, you have to be nice, and you know what? It's not the flavor. It's the texture sometimes. I can't eat slimy shit. I can't eat fermented shit, okay? It's like, I don't know if I could eat fufu. Like, maybe the soup part, but not like the squishy, spongy bread thing. I don't know. I have to try that. I haven't tried that yet. The soup, the stew part looked good though. That looked like some oxtails with some onions and some shit up in there. That I could fucks with that, But I don't know about the spongy bread that looks like it's slimy. I would have to try that. If I don't like it, you can't. Apparently it's rude to dislike a texture in a food. Like, you can't help what the texture is. You can't manipulate the texture to be anything else, because then it would throw off the dish. So the texture is just, I don't know. I'm rambling. But yeah, so basically this movie is a good highlight of showing how, and how insidious child molestation and grooming is. And it is that secretive, and it is that scary, and it is that push under the rug, even though people know about it and are aware of it. The sister knew. She wasn't saying shit to nobody. She just confronted him and then let it go. You know what I mean? Like, the mom knew something was going on and she tried to keep her child away from him, but at the end of the day, you should have been cussing him the fuck out and stabbing him in the fucking chest. All I'm saying is that if you touch a child, the next sentence is death. Because you basically just killed their future by traumatizing them and giving them some complexes that are intense, and then they have to heal from that, and they don't fully heal from it because now their world is shaped differently by the abuse that they experienced by you. You fucked up a child. You fucked up a human being that's going to go off into this world and have to work through some shit that they didn't have to work through before. And it may fuck up their lives totally if they never get help, because a lot of people don't. Cause addictions, cause people to kill themselves, cause people to be abusers. Some turn into abusers, not all, but some. So you're creating more. It's like spreading cancer on purpose, you piece of shit. You don't care because you don't see them as people. You see them as objects that you can manipulate to make you feel better because your feelings are hurt all the time and you don't like yourself, and you don't want to confront that and just go to therapy and fix it and then just learn how to like yourself. You want to use people. I'm going on a rant. I don't care how long this video lasts. Leave me alone. You want to use people to make yourself feel better and just make more people like you, and that's why the world is fucked up. Okay, that is why the world is fucked up. Let me get the fuck off this bitch. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was educational. I hope you learned some of the signs of child sexual abuse, grooming. Sometimes the abuse hasn't happened yet. At least know the signs of grooming. And if you see it, feel it, hear it, maybe you experienced it in your own life and didn't realize it. Check that shit, because if you don't check that shit, if you don't work on it, if you don't do something about it, it's just going to continue in the world, and the world's going to continue to be fucked up. Everyone that is able to check that shit at the door and figure it out, get the person that's doing it, or if it's yourself that it's been done to, or you doing it, stop it. Stop touching the children. Okay, let me go. This shit bothered me. I hope you enjoyed this. Later days.